Rob Tebbutt for Boxing News, delighted to be joined by Shane McGuigan. We're down here at McGuigan's gym for the first interview of 2024. Happy New Year, Shane.
Happy New Year, mate.
Is it too late for the Happy New Year stuff? We're on like the 10th. I think it's sort of like borderline.
It goes on the whole of January, really. I mean, especially if you're as anti-social as yourself or myself. So like we can just keep that rolling.
The first person I've seen, it's taken me 10 days of January to get out of the house. But yeah, how was your break? You managed to get a little bit of a break over Christmas? You are, as most trainers are, extremely busy year round. Did you manage to get any downtime?
Went to Disney for, that's my Ring doorbell, for 3.5 days, and I think we decided to come home after about 2.5. It's just too busy. Antisocial, that's what I'm saying. No, but it was nice, had some time off over Christmas. Got the boxes in between 27th and 31st, and yeah, just cracking on in the new year. So I've got Caroline and Adam out on Feb 3rd, so the whole training's been based around those two.
When it's Christmas in the gym, you don't have to name any names, but your role as a trainer, are there things that you look out for, people coming back into camp heavy, that sort of thing? Are you in touch with the guys who are not in the gym, or you just kind of leave them to it? How's Christmas like for a boxing trainer?
It's actually good. The group that I've got at the moment, not one of them drinks alcohol. CBS gave up probably like that 10 years ago. Adam, Hassan, Caroline, Ellie, they don't drink. Ellie's, the story she likes to say, she's never been to a nightclub. I don't think the others have probably been to a nightclub either. So, you know, they're all very disciplined athletes, and they've all sort of they've dedicated themselves to the craft. And I think, you know, being young and being like boxing from such a young age, just you instill good disciplined behaviours. And yeah, I think got a great group. Craig Richards as well, he's joined the gym, he's not a drinker as well, so everyone's disciplined. It's must be a boring bunch. I don't drink either, Pritchard hardly drinks, so yeah, no one really put weight on over Christmas. Obviously the Christmas puddings and stuff like that, the quality streets, they come out, they get you, but no, because we've trained the whole way up to it, and then we've started again so soon afterwards, no one's put weight on.
Right, well, before we talk about what's coming up in 2024, let's go back, because I didn't get an interview with you after Chris Billam-Smith's successful defence of his WBO cruiserweight title over Masternak. A crying shame. I think that's the first post-fight interview that you've managed to scuttle off from in a while. But let's go back and talk about that night. Chris Billam-Smith successfully defended his title against Masternak, but a tough fight, I think, as everybody expected going into it. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, like, he got cut quite early in the fight. And I think the blood might have swayed a lot of people, but if you look at Chris, he was getting hit with far too many shots, but he never looked unsettled, never looked out of his comfort zone, like looked physically tired, like from the own work that he was putting in, but it didn't look like there was no huge reaction, wasn't buzzed throughout any of the fight. And I think the lack of Masternak's power didn't make him switch on, you know. Before in the fight before with Lawrence Okoli, we just knew what kind of puncher he was. You know, he's a world-class puncher. He's been in the gym. He's knocked people out. Okoli, I've seen it firsthand. I've trained him for 3.5 years, so he was so switched on and had so much respect for the power. So defensively, he was a lot more alert, but lacked that a little bit against Masternak. Masternak doesn't really load up, gave too many shots away, but was well in control and was getting his groove, and as soon as he started to get his groove and getting his jab going, the fight ended. And it was the first thing that Chris said to me was, "I'm so annoyed," because not because he didn't box that best. He was annoyed that he didn't get the finish that he knew he was going to get. And you know, Masternak had been stopped in 2013 years ago, but had only been beaten since 2015. By Tony Bellew and Dorcas, both went on to become world champions. So his resume was really good, and gave a great account of himself. Arguably could have beat Tony Bellew. So, you know, for Chris, he wanted to stop him and didn't get the opportunity. He stopped him, but he didn't get the opportunity to really put the ice on the cake. I think there was a few times throughout that fight that he buzzed him up, and wasn't able to follow it up. But as the rounds were going to go on, Masternak was going to get more tired. He invested in the body shots a lot. And I think really that's what it was. I think Chris has, we were talking about it the other day, he's got this funny face that he pulls, and it sort of shows that he's really tired, but it's just where that's how he and George Gross used to have the same thing. He used to sort of drop his mouth and gasp for air like that, but that almost gives a false indication of how tired they are, but they're still super alert. And I think once Masternak expended a lot of energy in those first 6 rounds he thought he was going to get more of an effect. And then once Chris started to really overwhelm him, work the body, put the pressure on, and we look back, I think I looked back after the 6th to the 7th, and I looked across and I was like, this guy's gassed, like now you need to turn the screw. And it didn't last long enough. But yeah, look, he's going to have to be better when it comes to unification fights and harder challenges. But yeah, we're always looking and striving for more with Chris. You know, he's got that mindset. He's always looking for that 0.5%. He tapes his mouth up before sleep. Like, you know, he puts an eye mask on. Like, he will just do all of the things to get that little extra percentage in human performance. And I think, you know, we also need to strive for a little bit, you know, more performance when it comes to consistency through fights, because he'll have a great performance, slightly off, great performance, but across the board, he's still winning.
Going into that fight, there was a lot of talk in the build-up about Richard Riakporhe, about even Lawrence Okoli for a rematch. Jai Opetaia, of course, boxed on December the 23rd. Chris had to get past Matheus Masternak, which he did. So where does that leave him with his next fight? By all accounts, the WBO were potentially or were expected to be ordering Richard Riakporhe as the mandatory. Do you know if that's still the plan? If not, what is?
Yeah, he hasn't been ordered as mandatory yet, but he's with Boxer. Chris is with Boxer. Lawrence Okoli's still with Boxer. So there's options out there. We're just going to let the TV and Ben Shalom and Boxer with John Wish sort of fight out for us. I mean, we were looking to go end of March, potentially early April, but with the cut eye, might take a bit longer. We might have to push that to end of April, early May. But he just wants big fights. You know, Opetaia fights always on the table. That's great. Of course, he wants that. We're a bit frustrated that he vacated it, but we understand his reasonings for vacating. But he has to be seen still as the number one, box and beat up Marius Bradis, and you know, he's knocked out his last 2 opponents. But by the way, weren't even ranked. I mean, Elizoro wasn't even probably in the top 50. So who's taking the harder challenges? Yes, he's in much more competitive fights. Opetaia's like blasting them out, and he's a serious operator. But why is he pulling out Jordan Thompson, like, who got dropped by Vasyl Ducar, like a journeyman? Do you know what I mean? Like, Jordan Thompson's a good fighter at a certain level, but he was never going to become a world champion. He handpicked him, and then he's vacated his belt to go and knock out Elizoro for a load of money. And I just think, you know, you can't. Obviously, he'll have his reasons, and you can't knock it. But in terms of challenges, like, Chris is taking the challenges. He's boxed. Everyone thought Lawrence Okoli was number one in the division. Like, I was shouting about it for years, saying, "Oh, Lawrence is number one. He'll beat Bradis. He'll beat this." But Chris took that challenge, and he dropped him a handful of times and beat him. So, you know, same thing with Richard Riakporhe. Like, he's always calling out other people. "Oh, I'm going to do this to him and that to him." Well, like, why aren't you active? Why aren't you pursuing? Are you charging too much? What's going on? Like, get the fights made and take the challenges and risk yourself. And I think that's something that Chris has to, you know, he knows he'll go to the grave saying, "Do you know what? I did everything in my boxing career. I've challenged myself with the best people throughout, and I've always pushed and strived for the best." And I think, you know, yes, of course we want these big fights, but they take time to make. And I think unifications is what Chris wants. You know, he wants to, if he gets ordered for the mandatory, then he might have to deal with Richard Riakporhe. But then after that, we're looking at unification fights.
Before we talk about things that are coming up in 2024, wouldn't be right as well to touch on the other champion in the gym on the night in Bournemouth, Lee Cutler, picking up the English super welterweight title. Of course, his first fight under the McGuigan's gym banner, working with yourself and Josh Pritchard. Yeah. How impressed were you with Lee, and how happy were you that he got that win under his belt? Yeah,
I think it's a discredit to say he's working with myself and Josh. I mean, I'm here and I'm trying to oversee things, but Josh has done a fantastic job. He's taken on the role as head coach. Lee put on a great performance. I think he lacked that little bit of change under the gears to get the stoppage, but really comfortably won the fight. Got cut in the last, which is frustrating because up until that last round, or I think it was the 9th or the 10th, he got cut. He would have been out again straight away afterwards because Sky were really impressed with it. He was in a great fight, and I think Josh did a fantastic job. The shape that Lee was in, he was in great shape. Conditioning wise, was brilliant. So in his last fight before that, he was a little bit on the back foot. There was no change of gears. Like this fight, he was forcing it, and in against an even better operator. So really impressed with Lee, and also Josh, the hard work that they put in. And I think, I really think that they can get themselves a British title fight. You've got a good competitive division that as well. You've got Sam Gilly, who's up there as well. I think he's Commonwealth champion. So, Troy Williamson as well. He's just lost to Kevin Ajako. So there's quite a good few names out there domestically, and I think he's definitely got to get himself in the mix.
And a new arrival at McGuigan's gym as well, announced before Christmas, Craig Richards, light heavyweight. I think that was a bit of a surprise to a few people. Didn't really see that one coming. How did it come about? I know he's been in the gym over the years a lot, sparring, and you'd have seen plenty of him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really talk on Craig's behalf of what happened before with his previous coach, but I think they ended on good terms, and he was with Peter for a long time. I think it was eight plus years. So we've had Craig in the gym quite a lot of the time for sparring with Chris, and I've always kept my eye on Craig, and I've always thought, do you know what, he's always given a great account of himself with Bivol. Came on strong late in the fight, grew into it. With Buatsi, arguably could have beat him, and I think with a few, it's no disrespect to him, but with a few tweaks and technical tweaks and a bit more attention to detail and structure, I think he wins those fights, and that's literally what it is. It's the difference. When you get to that top level, it's in the balance. It's all down to preparation. That's all it is. Like two guys, getting through domestic level, getting through European level, you're all going to have to endure taking a shot. You're all going to have to show a bit of skill. You're going to have to show some shot selection, change of gears. All of those things get showcased on the way up. But then when you get to that top level, it's literally just in the balance. Everyone can fight up there. They can all hold a shot. They can all deliver. They can all punch pretty damn hard as well. And they've all got, like, unless they're a really, really exceptional talent, someone like Javante Davies or a generational talent like that, like it's 50-50, and I think down to that it's all down to preparation. The difference between winning and losing a split decision is just how much graft you've put in camp, how much you've studied a game plan, how much you've been disciplined throughout, sticking to techniques the whole way through your training, and that sort of stuff prevails. It's like who can hold their form down the stretch, and Craig's always come on late. He's always come on late in a fight, and that's something that has drawn me to him, because I think if we can get him to start earlier, if we can get him into his legs a little bit better, if we can, he's got a great jab, if we can get the right hand firing off the jab a bit better rather than just staying on the jab. Like I genuinely believe he beats them all. He's 33 years of age, but I genuinely believe we'll be sitting here in 2025 and he'll be a world champion.
You've had success with fighters obviously from the start of their career, Taylor, Frampton, Chris Billam-Smith. You've also done it at the end of the career, or not the end of the career, but later on in the career with your George Groveses, etc. How is it different for a trainer when you sort of inherit somebody like Craig, who is 33, or come in not towards the end of their career, but they're an established pro, as opposed to taking somebody from the amateurs or early in their career?
Listen, you can fake the amateurs. You can be a very good fighter, and there's bigger gloves on. Back in my day, there's a head guard, and there was smaller gloves, but now there's bigger gloves at 12 ounces. They've got a different type of foam. So now no head guards, but it's still not the same as getting hit with 8-ounce horsehair gloves on, or 10-ounce horsehair gloves. So you can put 4 or 5 years or 4 years into a fighter and think, do you know what, he's blowing over these people, but then as soon as he gets hit on the chin by an elite level fighter, all that, it's not all gone to waste, but you know that we've taken him this far. Can we, or him or her this far? Can we now sustain it, or are we now going to have to really start matching them well, keeping them away from punches? All this sort of stuff has to come into that all that attention to details, that's the case. But my point being is, like, the fighters that I've taken on from scratch have become world champions, but we've ingrained lots of good technique, whether it's defensive stuff or whatever throughout the years, technique throughout the years. But someone like Craig he can hold a shot, he can deliver, he can hold his form, he can hold his concentration. Like, he has all of the ingredients that you won't really find out for 3-4 years. So for me to take him on at this stage of his career it's great, because I know what he's like in a hard fight. I know that he doesn't blow a gasket. I know that he can hold his form. I know he can punch, and he carries his power throughout. So it just gives me more answers, to those questions. And I think that's what excites me. Even someone like George Groves, like taking him on after the Badou Jack loss, it's like, I know I can try and help him win a world title, and we ended up doing it, and he made a staggering amount of dough, and it was a huge success story. Luke Campbell, we put in so much work, and we got harder challenges when I was with Luke. We got Lomachenko at his best. So, but he still did really well. He still fought for 4 or 3 world titles. Went out to America and boxed Ryan Garcia, made a staggering amount of money, and still both of them sailed away into the sunset. And I think that's what I want to do for Craig. It's like, you haven't got over the line. You want to get over the line. Let's get you the right fights. Let's challenge. let's put everything into the preparation, and let's get you over the line and get you just to win those split decisions.
A few weeks away now from the return of a certain Adam Azim, of course, now the European super lightweight champion, faces Enock Poulsen, former champion as well. What are you expecting from him that potentially we didn't see in Adam's last fight?
Someone actually having a go. I think Enock Poulsen is going to come and have a go. Adam's got frightening speed and decent, and he's got good power. And I think these guys think, oh, maybe he's going to slow down after a few rounds. And I think now that there's more footage out there on Adam, like with Petterjan, he just kept that pace up. He could have done like 15 rounds at that pace. He's flying. Like, he's got an unbelievable engine. I think his ADHD just like lends itself well to just high tempo, high pace, sort of that frantic style. And I genuinely believe that Enock Poulsen will have it. Like, he won't try and sit back and let him get tired and then try and press it late on. I think he knows he's going to have to give it a go early. And I think once people start genuinely having a go, I think Adam's more of a natural counterpuncher. And once he can get guys to sort of lead in, he's going to nail them and take him out. And I can see Adam knocking him out mid-rounds.
Adam kind of raised a few eyebrows, as he has done in the last 12 months, really, with, he's not shy of calling for the big fights and the big names. I feel like over here in the UK, we kind of look down on fighters for doing that. And it's like, oh, well, who do you think you are, this, that, and the other? But this past weekend, we saw somebody, domestic, super lightweight, and Ahara Davies, obviously was stopped in a round by Ismael Barroso, but that's kind of thereabouts for world level at 140 pounds. How far away do you feel Adam is from that level, or maybe just above it?
Do you think Barroso is world level?
It's a fight where it basically, he fights for a world title next on the back of that. So that's what I'm saying. So kind of like final eliminator, interim level, basically being one fight away from a world title.
I genuinely believe Adam can beat Ismael Barroso right now. But it's not about that. It's about defending your belts and going after all the other people, like Devin Haney. Like, who's going to be the number one in the division? It's Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney right now. Haney's just beat Prograis, and I think that's what Adam wants to set his sights on, the best person in the division, not some weak champion. Because really, you become a weak champ, you beat a weak champion, and you're not ready. You're a target for everybody. And I think, when Adam gets to world level, I want him to be ready. I want him to be able to challenge Devin Haney, Lopez, and he's not there yet. He's probably a year away from it. He needs the experience. He might be 18 months off it. But if you look down the 140 division, you've got like Brandon Lee, you've got Subriel Matisse, you've got Prograis, you've got Devin Haney, Ed Shakur's about to jump up to it. It's a stacked division. Winning a world title in that is a huge achievement. So we've got to get ourselves the experience before we step up to that level. And I think he's a phenomenal talent. And the problem is that there's going to be very few people that can really give him hard fights until you're right up there. And then it might be a step too far in terms of like technically, you just need that really good experience where it's like you're holding your concentration for 10, 12 rounds. And I think that's the challenge of myself now and Boxer and John Wish, to be able to sit down and say, where's the challenges after this? Like, do we box Enock Poulsen? Do we go again? He's going to go into Ramadan. Do we go again in Slough, potentially? And box another European level sort of fighter, and then go for a fringe world title guy, or a guy that is a former world champion. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe a couple of them, and then say, all right, we'll get one that's maybe been knocked out once before, try and knock them out again. And then you're like, okay, let's get someone that's never been stopped. That's going to give you that 12 hard rounds and that has a bit more about him than just toughness. Do you know what I mean? Has a bit of skill about him. And then you'll be ready. And then it's, take the reins off and go for it. But that process takes time. And I think, Dalton Smith knocking out someone like Sam Maxwell, that's not going to get him ready for Subriel Matisse or Devin Haney, people like that. And I think, getting guys that are slightly more durable, i.e. Enock Poulsens of this world that haven't got a loss in their record, but they're still coming to win. Yes, they're not known by the British public, but still, like, people are there to see Adam Azim and see him box. And I think it's down to us to get him the right tests and showcase his skill, and also so we can get more information on how fast we have to go.
You mentioned Dalton Smith there. That's a name that's kind of been attached to Adams over the last 12 to 18 months. I think back end of last year there was some, I don't know if it was actual real talk, but there was stuff in interviews about making offers and this, that and the other. Don't pay too much attention to that. Is that something that we could potentially see this year, or is that something that sort of needs marinating or growing into a bigger fight? I mean, where do you stand with that? Obviously you had success with doing Frampton and Quigg and building that into something. Is that something that we could potentially see?
Yeah, I just don't think you... Like, of course it's something we're going to see. We're definitely going to see it at some stage. It's just you don't get many dance partners in terms of domestically. Like Ahara Davies showed his level last week. Do you know what I mean? He's not he'll never be world class. Like, I had Josh Taylor whenever he knocked him out in 7 rounds, like stood him on his head, knocked him out. So, like, you can never build that into a pay-per-view star. Like, you can into pay-per-view fight. You can't build, I don't know, who's somebody else domestically? You give us a name.
Pierce O'Leary.
Pierce O'Leary is a good little fighter, but he struggled in his last fight. Is he gonna beat Devin Haney? Is he gonna give him a hard fight? Is he gonna ever get to that level? He's not. So that's never gonna be a pay-per-view fight. And I think Dalton Smith's the only one that has genuine world-class, bar Adam, that they're going to go to that level. So that's why it has to be built right. They have to build each other, build their own brand and stardom, and get people on board. So the public then demand it, because there's not, we're in the boxing world. Like, that's a small world. You want people like that have one foot in, but they all watch 5 or 6 different other sports. But like, I really want to see that Adam Azim boxing that Dalton Smith. That's where they're going to pay for the pay-per-view, and I think that takes time. It just doesn't happen overnight. But we can't let it drag on too long, like Kell Brook versus Amir Khan.
On the same night, Caroline Dubois returns. A lot of talk about her in the last 48, 72 hours. The Rhiannon Dixon fight for the vacant IBF. Is there anything that you can tell me? Is that going to happen? Obviously, with last year, it was kind of blighted by purse bids and pullouts and promotional issues and stuff like that. Do you see that getting in the way of this fight?
I don't think so. No, I think this fight's going to happen. We are extremely keen on that fight. Let's put it that way. That's another example. Like, Rhiannon Dixon's like, she probably could win a world title, but she's not going to go down as one of the best female fighters of all time, like a Claressa Shields or a Katie Taylor. So it has to happen now, because if it doesn't happen now, she might get beaten. And I think for her sake and her management's sake, like Paul Reddy and that, who's also got Dalton Smith, but we're sort of saying maybe you should take that fight now, you know, because it's a great fight, and the IBF have ordered it. So if we can come to an agreement, that'd be great, and hopefully we can.
How much better can Caroline get still? I mean, I think she's reached the stage now where the tests are obviously going to start becoming stiffer than what we've seen so far. We all know that the depth of women's boxing isn't quite the same as in the men's code, so she hasn't really had that opportunity to show what she is capable of. What is she capable of, and what can we expect to see from her this year?
I think I'm yet to see a female fighter take a round off her in the gym. She's phenomenal. Like she'll beat everybody. Like it's genuine. Like it's unbelievable. She is gonna be the face of female boxing. She punches so hard. Her distance control is amazing. She lacked that confidence in her engine when she first come here. She lacked that robustness, but with sparring and technique work and confidence, being around other fighters, seeing other fighters have good days, bad days. Like you have to remember, I think she went 46-0 in the amateurs before she went into the senior boxing. Then she got beaten twice, like once in the Olympic qualifiers and trials. She obviously qualified, and then she got beaten by Harrington, who went on to win gold. But she hadn't developed physically. Potentially, she was physically developed, but she wasn't mentally, developed. So I think that sometimes takes time. Whereas now she's genuinely ready to go right now. I could say we could put anybody in front of her. Chantel Cameron, Kate Taylor, Sandy Ryan, any of them. Like Alicia Baumgarten, like absolutely anybody. I would have no problem saying yes to any of those fighters, because I genuinely believe, like, I struggle to see anyone beating her.
And final one for the night of Feb 3rd, Joshua Buatsi and Dan Azeez, two guys who I know you've had in the gym or in various gyms over the years sparring. You're quite familiar with both guys. How do you see that one playing out?
Like both guys. I think the quality lies with Buatsi in terms of punch selection. He has all the great attributes. I just don't think he's putting them together at the moment. You know, he does great punching power, great hand defenses, like great toughness, great chin, like, but just lacks that, whether it's an inner belief or intensity, there's something that's just missing. And I think maybe, Dan Azeez is just the complete, he's opposite. Like he doesn't have one excelling trait, but he's got the most important thing, and that's work ethic and graft. And I think in rounds, Dan, I think, will take a lot of rounds off Buatsi when he switches off, because you see it, even in like Bolotnik's fight, like with Buatsi, like he hurts him, goes for it, tries to go for the gears, and then just goes back into himself, takes another 4 or 5 rounds to then go again. And if you do that against someone like who's efficient like Dan Azeez, like those 4 or 5 rounds, he'll be picking those rounds up, or at least making them really competitive. So I genuinely believe, like, you're not going to see, an amazing performance from Dan Azeez. It's going to be like, how does Buatsi approach this fight? I believe he's super confident. I think he thinks he's going to knock him out, which I could definitely see. I can see him stopping him 8 rounds in. But if he's not at the races, and if he puts too much into 1 round and goes to sleep for 4 rounds, like, it will be a competitive fight.
And last but by no means least, the Queen of Catford, waiting to see her at some point in 2024, Ellie Scotney. What's on the horizon for her?
She wants to become undisputed. Erica Cruz just won against Rivas. You've got Mercado, who's WBC world champion, and then you've got the French girl as well. So we just want we've talked to Eddie. He's happy to put them on. I think he doesn't have Mercado. He's got an option on Rivas, and he also has got an option on the French girl. So yeah, we just want those unification fights. We want her to become undisputed by the end of 2024. So then she moves into featherweight at 2025. But we gotta keep pressing. We got to pull the trigger on that, because we could do it in 2 fights really. If there was like if Mikado boxed Rivas in America on a Matchroom show and we box French girl over here, then the winners fight each other. And that's the thing about female boxing, is you can actually do that sort of stuff. Whereas in professional game, there's so many managers and so many different promoters and TV networks and stuff. So Eddie's in a good position. I'm sure he can deliver on that, and that's what we've been ringing him up every 4 to 5 hours about for the last 3 weeks whilst he's been on holiday. So hopefully we can get it all signed.
I'm sure he loves that.
He doesn't, no. Probably just has me on block.
Shane McGuigan, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing News, having us down to McGuigan's gym. Wish you all the best in 2024. I'm sure I'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Rob. Cheers, mate.